Hey everybody, hope you're doing well in your lockdown, your social distancing, all of that. Today we're going to learn a really fun way to take some creative photos. It's a really different approach that you can do with any camera that has a detachable lens, and it's called freelancing. Hang around because this is really fun. Before we get started, I've really got to let you know something though. I'm going to be looking at 3 different freelancing techniques, but by far the coolest is the third one, which is where you can basically turn any lens into a macro lens. And that is that you can take really close up, fine detail shots, much closer and much more magnified than you normally could with that lens. So it's really fun, really cool. So, I just want to make sure that you don't kind of switch off before then. So if you want, you can actually jump straight to that third section to have a look at that particular technique if you like. I'll put the timestamp down below. And then you can come back to the other details, how freelancing actually works and some of the other cool things that you can do with freelancing. But make sure you don't miss the third part. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so freelancing is basically where you take photos with the lens detached from the camera. And today I'm going to show you 3 different ways to do it. And you get really different effects from what you can actually get with the lens attached. One of the advantages of freelancing is that you can use any camera with any lens. This Canon camera has to be used with Canon compatible lenses, either Canon or ones that are made for Canon. But when you're freelancing, because the camera and the lens are not really communicating with each other through the contacts here, you can mix and match as you like. So I could, for example, use my wife's little Panasonic Lumix camera here. That one also has a detachable lens. So I could use my wife's Panasonic camera with my Canon lens, and it's going to work. So that's one advantage that you have with freelancing. But why would you bother? I mean, if all of the lenses that you have, all of your Canon lenses work fine with your Canon camera and you're happy with that, why would you actually start taking them off and trying to use other ones or detaching it from the camera? Well, freelancing gives you the ability to do some things that you cannot do with the lens attached. So the first thing is to do with the focal plane. Each of the 3 methods I'm going to talk about all have the ability to change the focal plane. So what am I talking about there? Focal plane. Basically, when you have the lens letting the light in to the camera, it's focused on a particular spot. When things are in focus, they're focused basically parallel to the lens. So your sensor or your film is going to be right there parallel to the film. If I shift the lens this way, then that plane of focus is also going to shift. So everything along that plane is what's in focus. So as I shift the lens, the plane of focus also shifts. So you can imagine that if your camera sensor is like this, and your lens is focusing everything, the plane of focus is like this. If you shift the lens, that's going to shift it like this. And so then the parts of the sensor that are going to capture things in focus is just along this line. Here, everything, and as you move this way, it's going to shift. Likewise, if you tilt the lens up and down, then here is your image sensor or your film. Then as you tilt it, only the things along this plane of focus will be in focus. So in this case, if my plane of focus is now like this because I've tilted the lens down, then only the parts that hit the sensor there are going to be in focus. That is one advantage, is that it actually gives you the creativity to play around with that plane of focus to get different effects. So I'm going to show you in a really practical way how that works in a moment, because I'm going to actually use the camera I'm filming this with, and I'm going to take it off the camera as I'm filming and show you how freelancing actually works. Okay, let me introduce you to Happy. Happy is going to be our model today. He's going to help us out as I show you how freelancing works. I've got my Fujifilm X-T3 here, and I'm going to be freelancing with that. All right, so all I do is place the lens in front of the camera, and there we go. Now, how do I focus? There's only two ways to focus. One is by moving further or closer to your subject. The other is to move the lens further or closer from the body of the camera. So with it quite close, you'll see I need to move further away from my subject. As I move the lens further away from the body, I can get closer to my subject. But the whole thing with freelancing is that you can change your plane of focus. So if I tilt, for example, I want to make that left eye in focus, I can tilt more toward the left and it comes into focus. If I tilt more to the right, then that ear over there becomes more in focus and everything else goes out. So I can tilt up and down as well to move my focus to different parts. You'll notice I'm getting a lot of light leaks, and that is where light is coming in around the lens. Because it's away from the body, there's a lot of place where the light can come in. So you might want that. That can be actually a really nice effect, particularly if you're photographing something a bit more abstract, or you're maybe photographing flowers or something like that. That can look pretty cool. But you might not want that. So way one, I told you I'd show you 3 different ways to do freelancing. That's the first way. The second way is to actually block that light out. If we want to block the light out and stop it from getting in around the edges of the lens, how do we do that? We need a very specialized piece of equipment. If you're a photographer, hopefully you have this piece of equipment, and that is a black garbage bag. So I have a little bit of the plastic bag, and I've cut a hole that I can put the lens through. Just stretch it to fit the lens. There we go. Then I bring the camera inside like so. That'll stop the light leaks. Let's see how it works. There we go. And I can then move my focus as I like. So you can see freelancing gives you a different looking image, particularly in the out of focus parts of the image, and also being able to change that plane of focus. But this is the part where it gets really different, and that is when you actually do things a little differently to create a macro effect. And here's how you do it. I forgot to get my camera there to do that. When you take your camera and your lens, and instead of doing it this way, you reverse the lens and actually have the front of the lens against the camera. You'll find that it actually magnifies whatever is in front of the camera by a lot. So take a look at this photo that I took of some grains of rice. That's the closest I could get and still focus using my Fujifilm X-T3 and an 18 to 55mm lens. But when I flipped the lens around, here's what I got. Look at how much closer that is. That grain of rice is massive. So I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. So I thought, hey, I love coffee. So maybe I'll try it with coffee. I did that and it looked gross, and I didn't really want my impression of coffee to be ruined. So I thought, hey, what about sugar? Okay, so I just put some sugar on the bench, put a torch against it, and here's the grains of sugar. This is using reverse freelancing. So definitely give this a go. You can take flowers, you can take grains of sugar, you can take anything. We're gonna see it in a way that you're not used to seeing it, which will make some really, really cool images. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing what kind of images people can create using reverse freelancing. All right, so that's it for today. Hopefully you learned something. Let me know how you went with the freelancing. What were the hard bits? I find freelancing actually a little bit challenging. It's really hard to really nail the focus with it, but sometimes you can get some really, really cool images. So let me know how you went, and yeah, I'll see you soon for the next photo challenge. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.